Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Joining us now, Greg Iwinski, member of the Writers Guild of America Negotiating Committee. Greg, welcome back. I think the last time we talked to you, you were on the picket lines.
Yeah, I think we were outside of Warner Brothers Discovery office at Hudson Yards, and I was yelling over the street noise. So this is a much calmer interview.
Well, first off, congratulations.
Yes.
The contract has yet to be ratified by the WGA members. Is that right? The voting is already started.
Yeah, voting is from October 2nd to 9th. So it's a week of voting. So we'll know the ratification fairly soon after that. But yeah,
but everybody seems to expect that it's going to be ratified by the membership. There are sort of like the WGA East and West have okayed at least the leadership. Is that right?
Yeah, I think part of what the negotiating committee felt was there was so much leverage from the membership staying out on the lines, even that last week of negotiating. But that also meant that we knew that the contract we brought them had to be something that people would accept. So I think negotiating committee wouldn't have come out of there with something that we thought wouldn't be ratified.
All right, let's talk about what you guys ended up getting, because I mean it's been called historical, and we're at a really weird inflection point for the industry, the entertainment industry, from my perspective, anyways. One that I think is going to be, I'm not terribly enthused about where all this is heading, but in terms of like protecting the writers, it seems like you guys did a pretty good job. Can you walk us through sort of the gets that you got, the big ones?
Yeah, I want to talk just for a second, though, about those two, the moment you're talking about, because there is a lot of buzz about where are we in entertainment. There's a contraction. Things might get smaller. We're post-peak TV. There are two moments happening at once. There is a rising labor movement and a push for the dignity of our work at the same time as a contraction. And those aren't the same movement. There are two giant moves happening in the industry concurrently, but one didn't cause the other. I don't believe so. I don't think our fair contract is going to cause the industry to shrink, but if it does, it's good that we have good contracts.
Yeah, no, it didn't cause the other. What caused it was these corporations feeling like they needed to get in on streaming and it being like the new hot thing to do, essentially. And honestly, what may cause this contraction is the fact that they exploited the fact that they were able to use writers and actors without paying them fairly for these streaming platforms. And that's what caused this rapid expansion where people aren't consuming the content in the way that they anticipated. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think there was this over-leveraged pursuit of the kind of infinite buffet model that requires you to slash labor. Like with most tech disruptors, you have to slash labor protections. And they built a model that won't work with fair labor costs. At the same time, they also just realized, it seems like everyone chased Netflix and then all at the same time realized that isn't actually a model that works. We've had a model that works for a long time. You make popular shows, you sell commercials, you profit.
I mean, that's actually where my concern comes from. And again, this is not a function of labor costs at all. It is, they broke the model, and the model used to be in television, long tail, right? It was all syndication, is where everybody made their money. That's where the studios made their money. That's where the actors and writers made their money. Show gets bought, goes into syndication, and that pays dividends. That model was broken by streaming, essentially. And now some of them, it seems like, I think Amazon announced this, and Netflix has sort of been playing around with it, are trying to go back to the ad-supported model as a way of driving, and that's not going to work. I mean, I look at my son, and it's like the idea of him looking at commercials in that way, he's like, no way. He'll just watch somebody, comment on other people's videos on YouTube before he does that. And I guess my concern, and it's unrelated to, what was negotiated, but I guess we're here now, is that model is largely, like, the success of that model is important to the old Hollywood entities. But for Amazon and for Apple, the entertainment divisions they have is such a small part of their massive business. They're just using it to scrape data largely. And so at the end of the day, and I don't know if this is 5 years out or 10 years out, they're just going to function like any other tech company and be like, we don't care. Like they're not going to care about like the humans on the other end of it.
There's two things to that. One is that you saw that right after our deal, there was this streaming trade alliance announced to lobby DC that was the streaming companies. Apple and Amazon weren't part of it. It was the other companies. I think that the division has been made so clear about people who make TV as their product and people who make it as advertisement. I don't really know. But the other thing is about there's a couple things about the idea. Oh, if we go back to the model, if you watch YouTube, you sit through ads.
Right.
If you scroll through your Instagram feed, you flip through ads. If you are on Twitter, you're scrolling past ads. Everyone is going past ads all the time. The idea that anyone is living in an ad-free space is just not where we're at. And also, most people don't watch media the same way when they're 16 and 36. All of us change and grow and move, and we get more sedentary, and we just want something at the end of a long, hard day instead of when I was 16 and I was watching late night at 1:30 in the morning. So I think that the model works financially, but also we still haven't proven that it's that broken. It was a shiny object to chase streaming, but you come back to it and you look at like a CBS crime procedural that has 4 million people watch it, every week. So I do think that we are coming back to a model. Maybe it's going to be AVOD, which is advertising video on demand, no subscription fee. You just watch it like it's a cable thing, a place that the Writers Guild won terms in this contract. So now you can get paid fairly for that. Maybe it'll be that, like a fast service, or maybe it will be just more streaming and longer seasons. I think that the networks, the studios, the streamers have learned it actually is great if you have a hit, if you make it longer. Like you're talking about a long tail. I don't have to find 3 hits if I can make one show as long as those 3 would have been. Right. 16 episodes, 18 episodes. And I think you are seeing that start to come down the pipe of going, oh, if we put it out once a week and there's commercials in it and it builds buzz and it's 13 or 16 or 18 long, we actually can make a bunch of money. And they are rediscovering a model that we've been telling them has worked the whole time.
And I will say, we have Mo Tatzik coming on about the Amazon lawsuit that the FTC is bringing. And I think ultimately the entertainment industry is going to exist in some facsimile as we know it, is going to have to be protected by essentially pulling Apple and Amazon apart in many ways so that they don't have the ability to sort of like the entertainment part of what they're doing is really just another way of getting people onto their devices for other things or scraping data so that they can sell ads on other places. I mean, that relationship, there's going to have to be some version, it seems to me, of the Sin Fin laws that were destroyed now 30 years ago, I guess, 27 years ago. That's going to have to be some type of model in the way that we deal with the tech element within this business. But let's get to some of the big terms that you guys were able to secure for writers.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'm most proud of in this deal is that we did not leave any kind of writer behind. So screenwriters got guaranteed 2-step deals. What that means is if you sell a movie, you're going to write a movie, you get a rewrite, which not only is a chance to get paid more, but it also is a chance for you to prove that you can take the notes of the studio and address them and do a second draft and prove that you can do the job. It's not just I wrote one thing, I hope you guys like it, here it is. You're getting another chance. You're getting a rewrite on that, which is something that's been asked for a long time. Also, accelerated pay. So, they're not waiting for it, getting half the money up front and then half the money at the end, and it's being dangled over your head when you're trying to write a movie. So we address screenwriters for that. For my place in Appendix A, late night writers and game show writers and daytime writers had no pay protections in streaming. And we won those pay protections. That now if the Tonight Show moves to Peacock, or if we make a new sketch show on Netflix, it pays like it would on television. And that's was an incredibly important thing for us in Appendix A. And then for episodic television, I mean, we defended the writer's room. The idea that a writer's room exists, it takes writers to make a show. It takes a certain number of them to make a show. Getting better pay for higher tiers of workers. We got a ton for a lot of people, and that's what's great is that there isn't one giant victory that came out of this. It's across the board. Everyone got something.
In that Appendix A, and I think this is one of the questions I had about a couple of the provisions. There are categories in which you become eligible for this type of stuff that is a function of the budgets of the shows, and go into that a little bit for us, because some of those budgets seem to me to be like there's a bit of a thread of a needle there. Right. And I'm curious about that.
Well, we took a lot of time talking to a lot of people who are responsible for those budgets on the shows that do exist, to really talk with them about if these numbers were something that we could be okay hitting. And I think a large breaking point from that was originally coming in and setting these very high breaks. And I'm not trying to dogpile on the studios after they already lost, but I don't know that the people in that room truly understood how late night worked. So having to get a lower budget break for, say, a strip show, a show that's on 5 times a week, that's actually much cheaper to make than a show that's once a week, because you just are coming back out to the same set. And so getting a lower budget break there. But we worked really hard to talk to people who are making and have made shows to make sure that we weren't creating a false victory where there were budget breaks that nobody could hit.
All right, good. And the other question I had was about the sort of like the residuals for, I guess, top performing shows, divided by 20%. Go into that, because that to me is like sort of it's interesting. There's still these trade secrets about how many people are watching these things. To get a show in the top 20%, my understanding is that like 6 people in the guild will get this data. It will come in different forms depending on the streaming outlet. And it's going to be like some type of like star chamber where they can't tell anybody else what these numbers are. But I think the theory is with the guild is that they're going to have a sense of what the numbers are. So for future negotiations, we're going to have a better notion of like what the cutoffs should be, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say about this. I'll try to say it quickly. The model that they told us that they would never do this. This was an across the table. We've never paid for performance. We never will. It will never happen. Even in August, when they met with us, they offered us this 6-person transparency window and nothing else. And then when they realized that the guild was not going to break, we finally, in that last week, got this model, which can be built upon. We have breached the concept of getting paid for your show being a hit on streaming. So now that 20%, maybe there's a 10% tier and a 30 and a 40% tier, and the payment changes with how much. If I get 80% of your audience to watch something, I feel like I should get a pretty big bonus. But the math of it is really, it's just to get into it, it's the number of minutes that it's watched divided by the length of the show. And they say, okay, it was watched this many times. So if one person watches it 3 times, that counts as 3 people. It does not have to be 20% of the unique accounts watch it. It's just that's so we can have a specific number target that a writer or someone can know, because these studios go out in the press and they say, oh, our new hit show had 400 million minutes viewed. And if you're the writer, even without them being totally transparent, you can go, oh, well, I know that ding, I know that I hit it. I think that we have tried to get transparency, but it's also not only on the Writers Guild to get transparency for Hollywood. Hopefully SAG and these other unions keep cracking it open. Hopefully advertisers crack it open. It is unrealistic to think that for 3 or 5 or 10 years they can keep this under wraps, but yes, we will have the data provided to us as one data point. We'll have what they say in the press as another data point, and we have the ability, because it's contract language, to audit it, have an independent auditor for these numbers. So we have several data points to triangulate to make sure that the numbers are the numbers, and then from there we can see how we want to pitch adjusting this model.
Was there any, like, one of the things that that still sort of sticks with me is that is somewhat problematic about the 20% model, aside from like the sort of lack of transparency and the sort of everybody's delivering different types of numbers, et cetera, et cetera. That, to me, the streaming stuff is like you're filling a pond, you're stocking a pond with fish. And somebody's casting their line in there and they're going to pull some out. But the reason why they're able to pull those out is because there's so many fish in there, right? Like it's not like old style TV where there's one thing on at a time. There's a choice of 5 things or 10 things or 30 things that people are going to watch. And that choice is what also brings value to that streaming platform. And it feels like the people creating the content are not participating in just the sort of like the benefit of volume being on these platforms.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do think that this is just a personal artistic opinion, but I think that scarcity and curation have value to an audience. I think part of the thing that we like about network TV or cable TV is think about it like a real regular American. I don't want to use that in any politicized term, but like work was hard. I got home. I got my kids to sleep. I don't want to pick. I'm going to turn it on, and what's on? And that's the reason that we go and we watch a movie halfway through that we've seen a million times when it's on cable. It's on. It's presented to us. It's a lean back experience. And I think that we are moving that way because I think audiences are fatigued with having to scroll through 8 apps and each app has 400 choices and you don't know what you want to watch and everything is a cliffhanger. And you just kind of want to sit down and go, I'm going to sit down for an hour. I'm going to watch a story with somebody I like. And then I'm going to go, that was great. I'm done. I'm going to sleep. I have to go to work tomorrow. So I think we are moving back towards curation and that as part of that contraction or smaller pool. But that also, the less fish in the pond, the easier it is to be that 20%, you know? Right. So right. I think it moves us towards that anyway, when I think the fear that you hear about, that's all these numbers are so mysterious, but are we already in a situation where for some of these streamers, only the top couple shows even get watched? We don't know.
Right.
And which stinks for the creators and for the audience, but we don't know. So we already could be in a place where there's like 5 giant bass and a bunch of tiny goldfish. We're not sure.
Well, it was great to see the level of solidarity. I mean, I think maybe we talked about this when we were on the picket lines, but I was a member of the WGA back in 07 or 08, and it really feels like the level of solidarity much higher this time around than last time around. I mean, it's reflective in society at large, but it was not just between SAG and WGA, but which is also, I think, a sort of a new phenomena. But within the WGA, there was a lot more sort of, I think, at the very least, public, and I think even like, from what I understand, even like sort of like behind the scenes solidarity.
I mean, it was from the NEGCOM down, there was unity, and somebody asked me, a couple months ago, how are you able to go so long? And I think it's a real example of practicing the values you preach. The people who had more in our guild gave to the people who didn't have enough so they could keep going in the fight. That's why you had showrunners donate $40,000 of grocery gift cards at a picket. That's why we had the Green Envelope Grocery Fund, and we had the aid funds, and we had the strike funds, and we had the ECF, was so that the people who said, look, we have money and we have resources and we will use those to help the people who don't have anything, so all of us together can stay in the fight. It was real solidarity even inside the guild, and because of that, everybody won.
That's great. Greg Iwinski, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.